Welcome back. Let's go ahead and start to dive into one of the more important things that you'll ever do in R, writing functions. In my opinion, functions are a lot of fun. I think they are critical to the success of an R programmer to be very good at functions. They can save a lot of time and they can also keep the code very, very clean because when you have a separate functions file that you can incorporate as you're kind of working through the process flow, it keeps things nice and organized. It can be in a separate file and you source it in, and when you need to call the function, you can just call it. You can use functions in lapply statements and various things to avoid having to do kind of cumbersome processing with loops or other for statements or things like that. So, yes, functions are great, and I would recommend dedicating a lot of time to practicing functions. And so I'm going to walk through kind of a few different examples. These are just be kind of some starter things to look at. And I would definitely encourage you to practice and try things on your own. Functions may be one of the most important parts of programming in any language, and also R, of course. So, all right, enough of an intro. Let's get started. When I say very basic, I'm going to start extremely basic because if the idea of a function is new to you and somewhat intimidating, let's not scare you off. Let's get you going nice and easy here. So all a function is, we're going to give it a name, and in this case, I'm going to call it +7. And so when we're typing out a function, you can write a function without any input parameters, and it'll do a job. For the most part, typically functions have inputs. That's where they become more valuable, is you have a specific input. That input gets used along the way, and then an output is generated, and then that output is important when you're done with the function. And so typically that's what a function is used for, but that's not to say you can't write a function just to execute something and be done with it. So the functions I'm going to walk through do have input parameters, and they go inside of the parentheses here. And you can name them whatever you want. So in this case, NUM is going to represent just any number. It does need to be a number. And similar to when we've walked through the for loops or the if statements, we've had these kind of curly braces here. A function uses the same syntax where you give it a name, you'd say that it's a function. This is considered an input parameter. And then we do the inside of the function here, and we have it tabbed over for good clean code. So in this case, we are going to just create an output variable. I'm actually going to call it output, and we can take this input variable name, num, and it doesn't matter what that is. We're going to add the number 7 to it. That's why this is called +7. And basically, it's going to take whatever number is inputted into the function. It's going to add 7 to it. It's going to save it as the variable output. And then when we use the return command at the end of a function, it will know that when the function is complete, it'll output the output. And that'll be the result. This is something that if you don't explicitly list out what you want to output, R can guess, and it does a pretty good job at guessing what you want to output. It'll typically take, I would think, maybe the last variable. But as you start to code more and more functions that kind of grow in size, I would say it's a real good habit to get into, is to always have some sort of a return statement. You don't want to get an unexpected result just because you made an assumption that R would kind of know what you wanted to output. So as basic as this is, I'm still going to use the return statement, and that's just going to signify what I want to output. So when I go ahead and run this function in, so I just loaded all these lines together. We now have this loaded into memory that I can type out +7, and I can put a number in here. And doesn't matter what number. Doesn't matter what number we put in here. It will. Oh, some interesting typing there. It'll just add 7 to it. So extremely basic. One other thing I want to cover with this is the input parameter can be more than just one input parameter. So I'm actually going to, we're still in the very basic section here, but I'm going to change the name of my function for this example to just add it.